The writer for today and the Gannett News back in the 60s and 70s, and this morning we are learning more about his amazing career.
Cody and his Caravan are in Murphy, the town of Murphy, finding out more. Hi, Code.
That's right. We're hanging out with Sanders Lamont this morning. I ran into your daughter. She runs the toy store in Murphy's, and she said, "Oh, my dad is Sanders Lamont." I was like, "Sanders Lamont," and she was like, and you didn't believe me, but I read all your stuff, man. Yeah. You were like required reading when I was growing up, brother. Let's talk a little bit, because a lot of folks here know you from the Modesto Bee and the Sacramento Bee. So you did that for how long?
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
But before that, you were one of the...
Yeah, before that I was editor of two different papers, one at Fort Myers, Florida, and one in Ohio. But back before that, as a reporter, I worked at the Cape for almost 10 or 12 years for the Gannett News Service and the Today newspaper. And then prior to that, for the Miami Herald and some other papers. But
what was the first big space story that you were working on?
I got out of the Army in the spring of '65, and I was there for the Gemini 4 mission.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if you remember, where 2 astronauts flew in Earth orbit, and that was the first time they had a spacewalk. Ed White was the spacewalker.
Wow.
So it was pretty interesting stuff, and I was fascinated, like everybody else.
You kind of had to talk the paper into doing these stories, though, right? A little bit?
Well, the Herald had a bureau, and I was responsible for covering a lot of stuff. So space was just a piece of it. And so I kept encouraging them to do more, let me do more, but they were in a pattern of sending the superstars up from Miami for the big stuff, and which was okay, but it was good training for me. But they were not interested in having a full-time person cover the space program. And that's what I really wanted to do once I realized where Apollo was going to go.
Yeah.
And that they were serious about it. You know, they were going to do it, and they were going to spend millions of dollars and risk people's lives for a great adventure.
Yeah.
So,
what was it like covering it at the time? Because I'm, you know, I got to learn about this post covering, but like, did we understand? Did people quite understand how big a deal this was, or where we were going?
I mean, I think some did. I had a French colleague from Agence France Presse who was their Washington bureau chief or correspondent, and he covered space for years. And he told me, we were sitting across the table the night that Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and he whips out a bottle of absolutely terrible vermouth and starts pouring drinks. You know, well, this is kind of unjournalistic, right? But he's absolutely celebrating. He looks at me and says, "You Americans don't understand how important this is."
Yeah.
And I think in many ways that was true.
Wow.
Because we were so used to spectacular things and, you know, accomplishment. So a lot of people try to sell the idea of space exploration as, you know, well, it's advancing science, which it is. I always saw it as a great adventure story.
Yeah.
And exploration. And we can't cover Lewis and Clark, but we can cover guys going to the moon.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay, we're going to break down some of the biggest stories that he covered coming up in the next segment we do. But Sanders, thank you so much for having me out.
Sure.
Today. Seriously, I'm geeking out right now, my friend. I'm geeking out. Back to you guys.
Man, that is cool. Thank you, Code.